Hey, I'm Ruiz, and I'm going to be the moderator today for the Avatar: The Last Airbender panel because we're celebrating the 15-year anniversary. So thanks for tuning in, and this is brought to you by Multiverse 2020 Geek Fantasy Track. So for this panel, I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves real quick. Just a quick 15-second introduction up top, just so we know who's talking. So I'm an editor of an actual play podcast, Critical Bits, and I do a lot of stand-up and independent filmwork stuff. And so we'll go ahead and get started. And so I'm just going to go with who I see on the call. So we'll start off with Sara.
Hi, I'm Sara Bond. I'm an author, science fiction and fantasy. My debut novel, Gravity's Air, came out February. So, you know, just in time for the pandemic.
All right. And then Robert.
Hey, my name's Robert Jeffrey II. I'm a comic book writer, written for DC Comics, 133 Art, and Subsume Media. And I guess some of the books I'm known for are Route 3, Mind to Avenge, and Redcon. And I'm a graduate of the 2017 DC Comics New Writers Workshop. And I'm happy to be here.
All right. And then, am I pronouncing this right? Kyoko? Is that?
Kyoko.
Kyoko. Thank you. Okay. Kyoko.
I'm Kyoko M. I am the author of the urban fantasy, the Black Parade series, and the Of Cinder and Bone science fiction series as well.
All right, great. And then Kenneth.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Broome Jr. I am a college professor. I also work for BlackNerdProblems.com. I love science fiction, horror, fantasy, all those types of things. And yeah, there we go.
All right, great. For more on our panelists, please check out the linked videos from their descriptions on multiverse.org, where you can also find links to all of our programming. Speaking of multiverse.org, if you're watching this as part of the convention weekend stream, join us on the Discord channel right now for this track and during a watch party of the panel. And some of the panelists might be there, and instructions how to get to the Discord can be found at multiversecon.org/Discord. So yeah, go check that out. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming. So it's been 15 years. The actual air date of the first episode was what was it? February 21st, 2005.
My birthday.
So it was that they came out with it for your birthday. It was a present specifically for you. So this is one thing I was curious about. So I did not actually see it during air. I did not see it until after both this and Korra had fully aired. Weirdly enough, I saw Korra first and then went back to Avatar. But just to start off, did any of you watch it while it was airing, or when did you kind of come into, and when did you find it? Just out of curiosity, anyone that wants to kind of jump off, just because I'm just curious about that, because I don't know too many people that watched it as it was airing.
I watched it there.
Oh, cool.
Same, me too. I remember when, let's see, I don't know if we started, I think we stumbled across it. I have a very nerdy family, so we were always watching cartoons or stuff on Nick, and I think we stumbled across it somewhere in the first season. And then as we continued, and my mom's a huge fan, so that was the other thing of it was kind of a little bit of a family activity, excuse me, as it continued going on, and we got really excited for, where the show was going.
Yeah, kind of the same.
I would say it's a family activity for me too, but I didn't watch it until it came onto Netflix. And I'd heard about it for years and years and years, and decided to watch it with my 6-year-old son, and we discovered it together, and it was quite a bonding experience as we learned all sorts of new things, character arcs. I mean, having characters that changed from good to bad and in between was really fun to interact with my kid about.
I mean, and for me, I borrowed somebody's DVDs. I'd had, I remember, I think I was in college when it premiered, or I was graduating, and I had friends who were obsessed with the show. So I borrowed one of their the first seasons, and then after that I borrowed the second, and so forth. And I just remember there was one day where when I was watching DVDs on my laptop, I just laid down, just kind of chilled out, and I just the last season. So, and then I wanted more. So that's kind of how I came to it.
And like I said, I also watched it while it was airing and kind of just stumbled upon it as well. One day just watching Nickelodeon, it's like, oh, here's The Last Airbender and 4 Elements. And I'm like, oh, this seems interesting, and got hooked on it.
Yeah, I think the world itself is one of the things, me personally, that like drew me in. It's such a fun and vibrant world, and it feels and it's one of the things that I was thinking we could talk about. Like, I like how focused it is. It's really not like, because you see like it's like 4 nations. You look at like the map. It really isn't like a huge like super spanning world that you're focused on, but they still have so much like depth into it. And then each of the nations, like I kind of love the cheesiness of how like even if a Fire Nation person's like in the Water Nation, they're still wearing red. Like you will never not let people know where you live in the Avatar shows. But like, so that's one of the things, like what was something like the things that really drew you into the world? Because I think that that's one of the things that really made the show stand out so much, is not only was like the characters that it made, but like the world was so in depth from the get-go, and it was just everything happening in the background where you just kind of like got to experience it. So what were some of the things that really drew you in to like the overall world outside of just like the characters and just a fun, lighthearted show?
So, for me, I keep saying this, my fandom of choice is Star Trek, so behind me. So, but with Avatar, as in the case of Star Trek, the world building was huge, was key for me. And normally, it seems like the only franchise that gets credit for building its world beyond just one planet is always Star Wars. So I've always seen the Avatar universe as being something that could be expanded and expanded, and we see that now with Legend of Korra, jumping so far ahead into the future, and actually even before that, the diversity on screen. There's this epic story being being told, and it's not a bunch of British guys, like I said, which was the case of Star Wars for me. So that was huge, and at that time I was getting more into anime, especially with like action, and all that. And the bending itself was huge. So that, those were kind of the 3 things that kind of brought me in. And then you have this epic story of this kid, trying to find himself in this big world. So, but that was what was key for me.
Yeah, the magic system, the idea of controlling these elements and these affinities. I mean, you see that in a lot of different fantasy stories, but the way they dealt with it, that it has to be a learned creative system where you interact with the elements and it's passed down within these families and cultures. That depth of world building around the magic system really got me. That's where I really fell in love with it.
I just love fantasy. So when I saw, because I remember, even though I did not see the first episode when the first episode came on, I remember, of course, going back and watching the first episode and, watching Qatar first, just sitting here bending this one little bead of water. And I just remember thinking like, okay, I'm enjoying this. I just say, if I was in this world, I would be from the Northern Water Tribe. Because water is my favorite element. So seeing them start with these water benders like got me, because I was like, oh, I love water. I love water benders. And I was just ready to see what happens. I
would say for me, I really was drawn into the fact that everything that we saw was so character based. So I actually notoriously am someone who doesn't really like high fantasy, for example, because I run into too many examples where it's about only the world building and not about the characters themselves. When you're introduced to, your main cast, it like right off the bat made it clear that everything that we're going to see is based around who these people are, and that relates to their elements, to where their story is going to go, to, you know, the overarching themes and motifs and different things in the show. So I was like instantly hooked because of how I could tell this is about these people, and we're going to take you on a journey, but we're also going to make you care about these people and show them changing and growing and doing all these really wonderful things, in addition to just being action-packed and really beautiful and thoughtful and integrating all these different cultures as well.
And I think you do have a good point there. Like a lot of high fantasy is about like just like building up this massive lore, and the characters are just vehicles to do that. And one of the things I do like, I think is great about Avatar, and it's not like in comparison to the story, but like Mad Max Fury Road does this very well too with their background world building of like, it's just so well done in the background. It's just there, and you kind of just like assume what it is, but it's never like, you don't have to spend a whole episode being like, well, let me George R.R. Martin you and spend 17 pages telling you about a feast because of no reason. And so it's just like, that's why I think the Avatar does a really good job, because it is character focused, and the world that they're like going through is just so fun and expansive. I do want to touch on one thing, because Kenneth did bring this up. So before we get too far, you would be a waterbender. I would bend earth. What would everyone else bend? Because we all have thought about it. I know we have.
Fire. I got a
for
temp.
me,
Sorry.
I think. Oh no, I'm sorry. I think for me, I'd be an earthbender. I don't know, it's something about being from the south side of Chicago. That's that's what either that or I would be an earthbender probably.
I think when I was younger, I thought I was a waterbender, but as I get older, I was like, no, I'm a firebender. Like my personality now, I was like, no, I'm a firebender for sure.
Now,
Yeah, my son desperately thinks he's Sokka, but I got bad news for him. He's Zuko.
Oh.
I will also say, it's not bad. I will say this.
Arc, it's fine.
That's true. I will say this. I am very chaotic, so I would learn how to blood bend and use it. I would. I am not going to lie to you.
I'm staying away from you.
You gotta know yourself, and that's what the show really talks about, is finding the true you, and that's it. I had the same thing. I used to think that I was just gonna be a firebender, but then after a while, I think it'd be earthbender. And I know, I feel like that was one thing I was like, well, we'll talk about this later. But once it comes in, I was like, all right, well, we've all thought about it, Once again, we're pre-recording this, but if you're in the Discord right now, feel free to talk amongst yourself of which bender you would be right now, and then all of you form tribes and then start wearing the appropriate colors.
Oh, right.
Change your Discord color name right now to what bender I think you are. So one of the things that this panel was like, so the show came out like 15 years ago, and especially for me, I remember when I first found out about it, I found it very interesting. I was surprised that it was a Nickelodeon show. Like, not only was it like an American like based show, but like it was Nickelodeon, and I think that really did, because I know in other panels I participated in, one Robert was talking about like sci-fi, like a lot of stuff for like American animation hasn't been like, as prolific as like anime and stuff like that doesn't have as much of like a following. But I do like, I kind of think that this is like one of the first, American animated shows that really kind of like got the ball rolling. So what do you all feel about like kind of like the impact this kind of had, just the first run of it's just like 3 seasons. But what kind of impact do you think this kind of had, like moving forward on like American animation in particular? Just like I said, because there hadn't been a lot of this, and most people when they saw it would just be like, "Oh, this looks like a weird anime." Like, well, it's not an anime. Like I said,
I don't think we'd have Steven Universe without it. I think it completely opened up that huge world building, allowing them to play in such fun ways with these backgrounds of characters. And allowing the characters to change. That's what was so innovative about Avatar. Usually when you have these episodic series, the characters pretty much stay the same throughout. They go on these adventures, but they have the basic characteristics. And Avatar really allowed them to grow and change and become radically different people, go through these life-changing character arcs. And I don't think we'd have Steven Universe without that.
It's, I don't think we would have two of the biggest shows on Netflix right now, like animated series, the Dragon Prince and Voltron. They're, it's, if you go back and check, the level of talent that came from something like Batman the Animated Series, as far as writers and animators, I think Avatar had the same effect. So, you have these various animators and writers going to different shows and, learning what they learned on Avatar. And even, someone that was mentioned in another panel, LaShawn Thomas with Legend of Korra, like we wouldn't have Cannon Busters, or, something like that if he, without his, instruction on an Avatar related show. I'm really big on action, when it comes to TV series. I think that, or even animated movies, I don't think that we would get some of the great action that we've seen in things like the DC animated, direct to video or DVD releases, without Avatar. That's, for me, there's a direct correlation between, those things. So it's been huge and influential in Western animation. And I don't think we've seen anything told on quite that level, since, unless it's Voltron or the Dragon Prince.
I haven't, I'll be honest, I haven't really thought about that idea in a sense of what it could directly correlate to. But I will say that as a whole, Avatar gave us a sense of the bar that can be reached. Like this, like it gave us greatness in 3 seasons, and it's like, can what comes after this reach this? It shows us that this is possible, that American animation can be something that can hold its own against what we think of as just anime and manga and so on and so forth. So I think that its lasting impact is that it gave us a bar for American animation.
I definitely agree. I would also say that what I thought was, it was one of the first times where they took kind of like a traditional hero's journey and they put it in a context that children not only could understand but can enjoy, but also it was inviting a lot of different demographics together and helping everybody understand that there is a common point where all of these places meet, where stuff that little kids enjoy, things that teenagers enjoy, things that adults enjoy, as long as the story is well told and it's, branching over all of these really wonderful subjects, that's possible to do in animation, it's possible to do in America. It's something that there have been plenty of really excellent animated things, but as I think Robert mentioned, I think up until that point, it was either like kind of like Cartoon Network, like Dexter's Lab kind of stuff, that where it was like just meant for comedic purposes, or it was in superheroes largely. It was the context of something being taken that seriously and being able to grab that many audiences. And Avatar was the first time where it was based around children characters, but they were treated, maturely, and they went on the same journey that you would expect from something that was done with stories with adults.
That's a great point, the way it bridged the gap between the epic superheroes and the world-changing events and kids. I mean, the kids shows were mostly based around kids at home, kids doing things on the playground. I mean, it's like interacting in small ways with this very young characters, and said, you can change the world, you can encounter these epic things, even on a level that is appropriate for those kids, but still impact the world around you. And I like that it bridged that gap between those 2 different kinds of stories.
Yeah, I think a lot of the where you were saying like just 3 seasons of it, and then it was still able to like hit all those huge heights. And so I like moving on, like, some of the stories, obviously, the main through line is Aang getting ready to fight the Fire Lord. And then also, we didn't want to say this, but like, we're gonna spoil stuff. If you're in the middle of your like Netflix like catch back up, we're like, stuff's gonna get spoiled. So heads up. But I do think that like it is a wild thing to see this show. Because even like season 1, and one of the ones that really comes to mind of like a side story of with like the moon spirit stuff. I forget what I'm blanking on her name right now. But like it's like yeah, like that whole storyline is so good and moving. And like I rewatched, like I watched it, it was on Netflix, I think in like 2010 for a bit, and I watched it then. I mean, I rewatched it, once it came back. Like that whole, I didn't forget about the storyline, but like that storyline hit me super hard again, and like choked me up. And it's so intense and just like, and I just, that kind of stuff, that like just really resonates with the show. And once again, like how character based it is, you only meet her character for a few episodes. You're not there super long with her, but then, like her sacrifice really resonates. And you don't see that in a lot of like things that are focused for kids. Usually like a sacrifice like that kind of like goes away and just kind of like happens, to a character that's like introduced, feel it. And then you even, it kind of gets brought up later and you can like see the change in Sokka. So what are some like the side storylines that you think like really resonated with you, that like stood out from like, just like the main hero's quest?
I can jump in. I liked I believe it was season 2 with Zuko and Iroh being outcast and them trying to, the one where he was in the town and he lit the candles for the girl at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really, really, really solid, because it just, he was you go into this like you hate Zuko in the first season. He's awful. He's just so awful, and you want them to beat him. And then the show is like, oh yeah, well my writing is so good, I'm gonna redeem him.
Yeah.
And probably again, this has been mentioned for as long as it's been out, one of the best redemption arcs.
Oh yeah.
Ever written. Because again, you hated him so much, and then you see him, getting to kind of unfold and being outside of that oppressive place that he was in and experiencing life and seeing what, the Fire Nation's attack did to all of these other nations, what it did to people, what it was doing to him. And like I said, that was a really good side story for me in particular, just getting to see him like feel things. Like he's always been expected to just be in the corner and shut up and do what he's told. And he's finally being able to make independent decisions and seeing how that affects the world and himself. And I was just like blown away by that.
I feel that way about Sokka. I mean, he starts out, he's the Xander of the Buffy gang. He's the one who has no special powers. He's there for comedic relief at the beginning. He's, ruled by his stomach. And then I think from the moment he met Suki and started to realize that this is a very powerful warrior, she's a very feminine woman, and he can be saved by her. And then he starts to look at his sister in a new way and starts to realize he has different abilities to offer. I mean, his character arc going from that snarky, hungry, comedic relief into recognizing that he has things to offer. He can be who he needs to be without being a bender. I really liked Sokka's character arc. That's what stuck with me.
For me, Katara coming into her own was huge. And, once again, jumping forward to Legend of Korra, when you see that, she's at the point that she's at, that's pretty awesome. But there's one, and again, it could be kind of a side story, but there's one episode that stands out for me is when she encountered bloodbending for the first time. And I'm a huge fan for when genres kind of mix and mash or mash up or whatever. So, sci-fi horror, I'm always there. So something like Aliens. So in this case, it was fantasy and horror done in a kid's show. And I can only imagine watching that, with the kid and trying to explain to them like later on, why this was so scary or whatever. But having her encounter that, I thought was kind of a defining, moment for her. But her story, I think, was pretty big. You know, starting from the first episode to, you know, when at a certain point she just kind of becomes a master of her, you know, bending art. So.
Well, and their interaction with their parents too. I mean, Katara and Sokka, they've lost their mother at a young age. Their father's gone off to war, and they're constantly, do we check on him? Do we go and save him? We need him to save us. And then at the end, he gets injured, and they have to be the ones to save him. That movement from being the lost, scared kids to the heroes and saving their parents. It's just, that was powerful as well.
Well, there are a couple of scenes or kind of side arcs that stick out to me. One being the episode where Katara goes off to get revenge on the guy, and she realizes, Zuko helps her realize that this might not be the revenge you really think it is. And the other one is really, really short, and it makes me cry whenever like I think about it. It's the episode where they tell you everybody's random little stories, and Uncle Iroh is remembering his son, the day his son died. He's like on the mountain singing their little song. Like, that is so, I mean, we already know that Uncle Iroh is a good person, and to see him still remembering that was just so sad for me. So.
Well, and knowing that he was responsible for his son's death. I mean, that he wasn't this good old guy who liked to drink tea. That's who he became after suffering this terrible, terrible loss.
True.
You didn't really get it until that episode, and he sang that song. You're going, oh man, he lost everything.
True.
Yeah, that song is torture. That's really the other thing I think this show, like the balance of the show and the tones that it switches between. Because really, like, you have storylines with Iroh that, you know, are like, you know, he is, you can kind of tell he has this like long-term plan, level-headed, very silly, but then super other side of that coin, the other stuff with this kid, how he actually feels remorse for everything that he's done in the war. And you do that, what we know, we talked about like Zuko's redemption arc one, but then also on the other side of that, the show is so funny. It is so hilarious because, you know, we're talking about like season 3, all the Zuko redemption stuff, and people, and Zuko's helping people, and there's like an episode where Toph complains, and she's like, "When do I get my Zuko side quest?" And like just like stuff like that. It's just like the humor is so. And I know for me personally, I look out for a lot of like comedic stuff. A lot of like the writing and stuff that I do is more comedy focused. So that's the kind of thing I look out for a lot. But like, it really is like the tones that it hits. And you're even talking about Robert with like it hits horror on it. Like, I really think this show is a good example of just like how you really can genre shift like and blend throughout this entire thing. And especially with like a lot of the side characters, not even like, you know, not talking about like side, but like the cabbage guy.
Yeah.
Cabbages.
Rest in peace to his cabbage cart.
But I'm saying, so I think
Cabbage
like,
Empire in Korra. It's just like,
and I think that's kind of what you like Sarah was saying, like with this show, like paved the way for things like Steven Universe and other things, because it really did just the blending of it. And, you know, we talked about this in another panel. Anime does have a lot of like genres shifting and blending and stuff like this, but this one really does just show like the tones of it, of like you can hit certain beats. It can be very funny, it can be very playful. But like what is some of like, you know, the highlights of like the, you know, were you attracted to more? And you can also just be kind of it, but like, you know, the playfulness of it, because, you know, majority, especially for Aang's storyline, is, you know, they're still kids, they're still fun, or, you know, was it like kind of like the action of it, or, you know, like, you know, I know Sarah had mentioned like the magic, but, you know, just kind of whenever you're like really looking at it, like what do you think is like the best takeaway of the show for you?
I would say for me, I really enjoyed that balance of knowing when to shift the tone, especially because it did such a good balance of, again, it reminds me of something like Batman the Animated Series, where it always knew how to set the tone and where it was going to go. And it it stayed consistent the entire time. And so when I end up rewatching it, it's just such an enjoyment of seeing these different, really colorful personalities, and they all have a place. Nobody is like useless, which can often happen in certain shows that aren't written well. They knew exactly what they were going for. And so that's why it's so satisfying when you watch it, is that everybody has a projected path, and the way that they reach it is a way that, you know, is really intelligently written, and it's very, very enjoyable, whether it's, you know, silly moments like with Foo Foo Cuddly Poops and Sparky Sparky Boom Man.
Sparky Boom Man, yes.
Or when you know, like that utterly chilling fight at the end between Zuko and Azula. Like,
Oh yeah.
my God. I mean, if you could, it's like sad that we have like Emmys and stuff, but it's like, I want to give an Oscar to a TV series of just like that one moment of like the weight and the power and the emotional payoff of that was just crazy. It was so powerfully done. And again, I think that was because they knew where they were starting and where they wanted to end up. And when you do that and not trying to, you know, cram in too many things that didn't fit, you ended up with a great product.
Well, I like that they had those goals, but they also never flinched when it got hard. Like when they were dealing with huge topics of authoritarianism, even the Bossing Say, there's no war in Bossing Say, just facing that down in such a unblinking way. Even when you're dealing with kids, they're going to encounter big political issues. And oh my gosh, we watched one of those episodes and I had to pause every couple of minutes to talk to my son and say, okay, so I know this is big. I know there's a lot going on here. Do you understand it? And he understood propaganda by the end of it. He understood the ideas of authoritarianism and fascism, and that a government that says it's there to help you is not always there to help you, that they're using the tools that are available to them to do what they got to do or do what they want to do. And the fact that this kids show allowed us to have these very big conversations because they didn't shy away. They didn't turn the camera. They confronted it head on, and sometimes with humor and sometimes with soul-crushing sadness. But the fact that they were able to do that in such an unblinking way is what made it so enduring to me.
For me, sometimes I sound like a broken record. Representation was huge for me because first you have this epic story with a group of characters that I'm kind of fell in love with, and one of the things, with us growing up is in the geekdom or nerddom, when it comes to fantasy, fantasy is always, at least the more popular titles are kind of based around like a Arthurian or like British vibe feel when it comes to telling these larger stories, and it's with Lord of the Rings and a lot of Tolkien, and then also you come over here to America, you have George Lucas with Star Wars. It's not based on those ideals, but it's like rock and roll in space. So but even then within this backdrop that they're building these stories on, these larger than life stories, I'm still getting just one perspective. So when it came to Avatar, there's such appreciation for Asian culture, in that, that just kind of, that struck me, because when it came to animation, the only thing that I was used to as far as appreciating Asian culture were various forms of anime. So when it came to Western animation, that wasn't the case. So to see that was huge. To see characters of color leading I guess saving the day when it came to the TV series was also huge to me. So and then once again, moving into Legend of Korra, I mean, they were representing so strong in that show that Nickelodeon tried to shut them down. So that's what kind of stood out to me when it comes to that series.
I think for me, one of the things that stood out was and this is kind of going to sound like a cop out, but really just I had never seen anything quite like this, and kind of the fact that they were not afraid to show you moments of the hero not being in control of themselves or not being in control of the moment, like when Appa gets kidnapped and Aang finds out. Like, Aang is very upset. And you're as a hero, you're not supposed to be not in control of the moment. You're supposed to be completely in control. He was a kid dealing with basically his pet having been kidnapped, and he also has to deal with the fact that he has the power to do something about it. Or when he finds out that all the air monks are dead, he loses control then. Or when he finds out, when he first gets released from the ice, all he wants to go do is play. Like, we don't see. He has such a great arc of changing and accepting the fact that he has to be a hero. I think that's something that really stood out to me, is him understanding, or us seeing his journey of understanding that, yes, you are a kid, but you also have certain duties that you have to do. And I also think, like, when we get to the end and see that he figures out a way to not do what everyone has been telling him to do, but at the same time doing what he needs to do. I always thought was an interesting thing, because I ain't gonna lie, I wanted him to go ahead and kill the Fire Lord, but the Lion Turtle gave him a different way. So I think what just stood out is that was such an amazing, like I said, it just wasn't something I'd ever seen before.
Great. I'm glad you said that too, because that was one of the funnier parts of like fandom, of everybody was like down with killing Ozai. It was like, this guy is the worst, and the planet will be better with him not here anymore. But I feel you, Aang. I understand.
Oh yeah, and then
Iroh did something similar when Zuko was saying, "I know Azula's my sister, and I've just got to figure it out." And he goes, "No, she's crazy. You need to put her down." Right?
I think that's one of the. Well, first of all, I want to say because we're just talking about wanting to kill Lord Ozark. I just want at least a mini series, a maybe TV movie of Avatar Kyoshi, because that is my favorite. Because like anytime Aang goes and talks to her, she's like, "Murder him, slap him, do whatever you need. Stop whining about this thing. Just go." And it's just like, that's what I want to see. I want to see Avatar Kyoshi just being like, "Oh, I'm sorry, do you have a problem? All right, let me just throw." Okay, there we go. We solved it. But going back to like Azula and stuff, this show has such good villains, and I think that's also a part of the Zuko thing. With the villains, because like Zuko started as a villain, and you could kind of tell, oh, this is going to be our character that like does the switch and stuff like that. But even with knowing what's coming, it's so good. But on the opposite side, you keep seeing ways for his sister to get redeemed too. But the kind of juxtaposition of those two characters of like she will refuse until the last breath to ever like turn or like admit fault on anything like that. And I think like the villains are really good. Not to like go too much into Legend of Korra, since it is the follow-up season. I think also the season 3 villains in Legend of Korra like are some of my hands down favorite villains in all media, not just the series. But I do think that's what trying to talk about, like the characters that's one of the things, is like the characters are so well fleshed out, and multiple people have said like just like they knew where they were going with it. So we're a little over halfway, so we can have more fun things. What is some of your favorite, like what was favorite character in the show and stuff like that? Like I think mine is a hard toss up between Toph and Iroh, because I love both of them. But once again, I think that even just like it's hard to pick too, because some of the villains, just as far as like a writer and something like that, they're so well made, and you understand why they're so evil, and at times you kind of like get it, but also at times when you just want the Fire Lord to die, like you're just like, no, just kill him. Like that's a very well written character, somebody that you do hate enough to be like, no, like murder him. So like just top, if you have like tie for like 2, but just like favorite characters from like Last Airbender, not going into Korra.
I always like it, I hate it when people ask me because it's so hard because everybody's written so well. I was like, okay, fine. Gun to my head, Zuko. But it goes for me personally, Zuko, Toph, Sokka. Like my top 3 are just, I absolutely adore them. They're written so well. Their voice actors are fantastic. All of their arcs are great. Their dialogue is wonderful. I love all 3 of them. I think they're so good. It's really hard to pick, but I was like, all right, I guess I'll say Zuko.
Yeah, Zuko and Iroh are definite favorites, but so one who doesn't get enough credit, May. May and Lee are some of the best henchwomen ever. May is so nuanced. I mean, she's coming from this very privileged background, very much like Toph, but she goes, I'll be a villain. Sure, my best friend's a villain. I'll go. And she just kind of follows along, but she's incredibly competent and nuanced, even though she's so blasé about everything and becomes this very complicated love interest. You're just going, where did she come from? This is a secondhand character. She could have been completely overlooked, and by the end of the series, we know so much about her. I think May and Ty Lee. I want to know more about Ty Lee, that chaotic neutral who just kind of sides with the bad because her best friend's bad. She's gonna help her out, and her best friend gets beat, so she's gonna be good. It'll be fine. I mean, she's just there for the ride, and I love that about her. These girls are so competent, but their villains are heroes depending on the circumstance, and I love that complicated backstory to them.
I feel like saying this, I would just be straight up chaotic, but I do like villains. I really do. So probably one of my favorite characters is Azula. And it's because she is just downright insane. I never thought that there was ever a moment that she was going to get redemption. She was here, she was happy being evil, and I fully believed it, and I was there with her being evil.
And you're a waterbender?
Yeah. But I do. The only thing I like about firebenders is that they can create electricity or lightning, and that's one thing I like. She was just crazy with her lightning, and that's why that last fight is just so great, because she is not holding back whatsoever. She is here to kill. She has gone off the rails, and she is fighting to kill, and I just loved her for that moment.
There is something about a villain that, like, unflinchingly, like, nope, this is what I am. What, you have a problem with? I don't care. This is what I want to be, and I'm not going to let anybody change that. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. So if that entails, walking across corpses, okay, I'm down with that.
Well, and don't forget that priceless flirting scene where she's trying to be all flirty at the island.
Yeah, that's
one of
also,
my favorites.
that's
Scorches the game.
That's like,
burn it all down.
That's a very good example of the show, like, allowing itself to kind of like have those moments. And also too, I think it's very interesting because the show is so well written, the characters are well written, and it does follow certain like tropes that you're used to and themes. Like even with like we're just always talking about Zuko's redemption arc because it's so good. I remember when I first watched it being so surprised at the end of season 2 that he didn't like betray his like dad, like that he actually like still sided with them. And because that was like, I think that's one of the things, because you also see it a lot in Korra, is that like, and what you're talking about kind of with like where you see like Aang really struggling, this show really puts the heroes through it. It really makes the journey seem like they like fought for something, and then lots of time shows them backtracking, shows them struggling and stuff like that. Especially within Korra, there is a very big storyline from like season 3 going to season 4 of her like struggling with PTSD as this hero. And I think the show, you know, we're talking about it, it's just like it's so interesting to see like them do that, because you're talking about like the villain character, but also, you know, they could have just let us see Azula as so evil, but then we do have that episode where she's like being like, okay, boy, flirt with me. Why am I not good at this? I will burn you. Like it's so, and that's, I don't know, it's just like the like the amount of just, you know, situations they let these characters go into, while you also like, you know, I think it really just like speaks to the show so much. So like I said, we're kind of the second half. One thing that I do think is a very fun thing about the world itself, and it's very much a background character, every animal is a hybrid animal. And it's so adorable. I love all of them. What kind of hybrid animals would y'all want? Because I'll say this, I have the first thing that I saw was Cora, and so she just has a polar bear dog, and that was the one I was just like, well, yeah, you can just have a polar bear dog. But I think it's just like that within itself is like such a fun thing, and then also the spirits in the world are very fun, and I think it gets way more touched on in like Legend of Korra for the spirit world stuff, but all just like the animals and stuff, like it just has it does like the feel of it, because it's like very Asian based, and like the just like where a lot of the creativity is drawn from, it just kind of has that fun feel, and this really adds to like the world.
I think my favorite was the moose lion. I thought that, like, if I had to have a pet, I was like, I mean, it's chaos, but I was like, that was
lion.
I thought it was rat. Like the saber-tooth tiger, moose lion. I don't know what you want to call it, but
that's
yeah,
so great.
I thought that was really cool.
What was it? The penguin, whatever they were bobsledding on in the first episode. It was like the penguin something hybrids, and I just felt that isn't that torture for those animals? Like Aang just popped up out of the ice and like let's subject this animal to this to this fun activity that we enjoy. But yeah, I think that's the one that jumps to mind. If I could create one, it would be a raccoon cat. There's something like that.
Ooh, a raccoon cat. I like this.
Yeah.
I'm partial to the badger moles. The way they interact with the earth and what they taught off. I was like, yeah, that's a great use of this crazy thing that y'all just sort of threw into the world. But then you have the badger moles, and it's like, oh, okay, it makes sense suddenly. I love those.
Well, probably my favorite from the actual show is the lion turtle. I know it would outlive me by hundreds of years, but to have one as a pet might be for a little while would be nice. And to just have one that I would create, I'd probably create something that not already exists, but already exists in fantasy, which is to have a Pegasus.
I was going to say vulture wasps. Things were horrifying.
Okay, so like I said, let's see. I think we have about probably 10 or so-ish minutes left. Legend of Korra obviously did come out after this, and that one did run 4 seasons. And there are graphic novels that and of all this. So what are some things that you outside, and then we don't have to talk about the live action movie that we can all choose that did not happen. But what are some things that you kind of like hope to see kind of in the future of this, or think would be kind of like fun that you like, because especially too with like it coming, like both series coming back on like Netflix and then getting all the love again, hope maybe, I have fingers crossed that like someone's like, hey, how about you come over here? But like, what are some things that you think would be fun, like kind of see of the franchise moving forward?
I'm going to do the boring answer. So I remember back in the beginning when Korra came out, they did that poster of all of them as adults. And I was like, make that show. Like, I want the show where they were all like 20 something, because that sounds fascinating. Like just seeing them aged up into the adult versions. I know some of it went into Korra, but I have to confess I didn't watch it. I would have like 100% been on board. Like even if you don't want to do a full 3 seasons, just like a mini series of what it was like when they were like in their 20s or so, and the way that the world changed after the war was over, and just getting to enjoy that part of their lives. I would really, really like to see that.
I mean, for me, I want to give this universe a Star Wars treatment. I want more expanded novels, more expanded comic books. I want spin-off animated series. Just growing the universe. Like, I love, like I said, I love the idea of seeing them in their 20s, but I like the fact that every book of the core series deals with a different avatar. So in my mind, they're jumping to like modernized or futuristic Republic City. And to see the clash of, the natural earth, kind of bending, clashing up with the technology of the time, which kind of happened in Republic City, see that. And quite as it's kept, I hope Netflix doesn't mess up with the live action series. They messed up with losing the creators. So I just want this to be as big as Star Wars because I think it deserves that type of treatment. And, I held up 4 of the books before. I'm a crackhead when it comes to picking up this stuff. So, but I just want the fandom to continue to grow and grow and grow.
And I just want to let everyone know, after the call, Robert, I want to get another call with you so you can give me your entire pitch of modern day avatars bending, going up against technology. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, all right, panel's done. I just want to talk to Robert directly now, everybody, and hear this pitch.
I would love to be on the writing staff. I got ideas. So
I'm here for that Kyoshi prequel. I want to know all about how often and how horribly Kyoshi lost her temper and just wreaked havoc with her awesome powers and created a sect of warriors named after her that learned her fighting style. I mean, that's cool. I want a Kyoshi story. I'm on board for that.
I one of the things that, Avatar has been very diverse in a way, but I do officially want a animated version with a Black or officially Asian avatar. One who does not look ambiguous, one who is, we know that this is a Black person, we know that this is an Asian person, Hispanic, whatever nationality, one that is officially of a different nationality that we can for sure know that they are. And whatever the cycle is, I think Earthbenders are next. So in Earthbender, so on and so forth. So I think I would enjoy seeing that.
What about the disability rep? I mean, we didn't talk
that's true.
that, but
That's true.
I mean, is this pretty widely acknowledged disability, and she
Mhm.
uses her bending to work around that, and I loved that. And I'd love to see an avatar with a disability.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that we could talk about. Like the character of Toph is very interesting too, because also she has like the disability rep, but then also we see them go a different route with like that she is kind of like a not spoiled kid, but like had the potential to just be a spoiled rich kid. They kind of do whatever she want and would just kind of complain. But the fact that like her parents refused to like let her do anything and coddle so much that she had to like go out and actually have to find how to like exist and live on her own is a huge testament to that, because it's not even like so I even within that, like this show, and that's also what was like hard about this panel, because as we kept talking, I kept being like, oh, we could talk about this, oh, I could bring up this thing, oh, that's a good storyline, but I was like, no, we have like an hour, and then other people like so it's the whole show altogether is just, I think, just a real testament to storytelling. I really hope that just I agree with you, Robert, if this could get a Star Wars stream and just keep expanding the world out, because the thing about it, it's an interesting property because you can focus on the avatars, like like you were saying, like do in the 20s, or you can just hop around, be like, cool, this is like, here's more about the first avatar, here's an avatar from the future, and you really could just hop around anywhere. And I think one of the coolest things that they showed is like going from Aang to Korra, because I think it's a 70 or 80 year jump in the actual timeline, because like Korra is a bit older when we actually go in there, but like you do see like how technology has like advanced
Yeah.
and changed and really changed everything, and then like the politics has changed. So the whole show altogether is great. For some reason you watched this panel and have not watched Avatar at all. I hope we convince you to watch it. And if you haven't rewatched both series on Netflix, go do it, because streaming services will just take rights away. We don't know how long it's there. So
Avoid the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
I mean, we
Pick up the comic books.
just deplatform them. Don't even talk about it. Someone's like, "There's a movie." Like, what movie? I've never.
Just like they're don't
Yeah.
talk about the
Only
Fight
one
Club.
Matrix.
Don't talk about the movie.
Is there anything else? Because we have just a few minutes before we do wrap ups. That you wanted to say about Avatar before we do final plugs?
So for me, I wanted to toss out just my two favorite characters, Toph and Katara. Those
Oh,
were
sorry, skipped you.
yeah. Those no, you're fine. You're fine. And Toph for the reasons that you named. So she was huge, and once again, seeing where she goes to in Korra made me love her all the more. So
I do love like the little bits you get to see the characters in Korra.
I mean, she creates her own form of bending, so
I mean,
Right?
and creates her own school for it. So that's huge. Like I don't think there's a bloodbending school. So
I think I actually,
maybe
if
for
I
serial
remember
killers.
correctly, we were watching that live when she metal bent, and my mom like jumped off the couch, like threw her arms up. She was like, "Tom, yes!" She was like over the moon, as was I. But it was adorable because my mom was so excited. Top is her favorite.
Yeah, Toph is great. She's just and she's a very good character that like doesn't like take crap from anybody, but isn't like overbearing on it, and it's still like
Right.
fun and enjoyable. Okay, but we have to wrap up. We can't just.
Bearing with Aang though. Just
But-
move it,
but-
twinkle toes.
But their relationships, I think, and I do like that they all have their own different. Like, it's so hard to wrap up this panel because I'm like, no, you brought up 17 more points. Let's keep going. This is now an Avatar con. So yeah, this is it. Before we do the everyone's plugs, I just want to give a few more things. So this is for Multiverse Con. We are collecting money for charity at ko-fi.com/multiversecon. All donations, with that, minus the fees, will go to support the Equal Justice Initiative. And then also, if you want to get some Multiverse swag, go check out the store on their website, and they have shirts, enamel pins, and more. You can find all of that at multiversecon.org. And if you enjoyed this panel, please make sure to check out Multiverse other programming this weekend. Our full schedule is available at multiversecon.org. And so for final plugs, I've been your moderator for today. I run an actual play podcast. We use the Math System. It's about teen superheroes. It's very slapstick, wacky, and there's a lot of body horror and anti-fascist stuff like that. It's called Critical Bits. You can find it at criticalbitcast.com. And so we'll go ahead and do the same order. So we'll start off with Sara. Where can people find you at?
Well, I'm all over Twitter, although right now I'm at the beach, so I'm not on social media too much, but you guys can pick up my book, Gravity's Air. It's available primarily at your independent bookstores, but also it's on sale on Kindle for right now, $3.99. Yay, it's Gravity's Air.
Okay. And then Robert?
Yeah, everybody can find me at Robert K. Jeffrey, JEFFREY.com, robertkjeffrey.com. And I have plenty of copies of Route 3 in my closet right here. They're just like falling out. But if you love prose, comics, sci-fi, that's the place to find me.
All right. And then Kyoko?
So you can find any of my work at shewrowritesmonsters.com. It's got both my series, the urban fantasy paranormal romance, and then the recent science fiction dragon hunting series that I write. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook occasionally. So, and that's under Miss Kyoko M.
All right. And then Kenneth.
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Blue and Right. That's BLUNWRIT, the number 3. And on Black Nerd Problems, I write for them and edit for them. So you can find me there as well.
All right, great. And so thank you for everyone that's watching. Like I said, this is pre-recorded. Hopefully, if you're in the Discord live watching this, you had a fun time, or if you're watching after the fact. But thank you for enjoying Multiverse, and have a good time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.